Welcome back. This is part 4 of our facial tracker tutorial series for NEAS. We're going to be looking today at how the raw face data can be used to make gestures or animations, sound effects, etc. happen. We're just going to be doing one example here, but it should provide you with a foundational framework where you can look at the data and say, if I know LogiX, I can make other stuff. With this data, you should be able to sort of take a look at any of the other tutorials I've made and plug in various bits and pieces and get all manner of things to occur. Let me show you what we're going to specifically be building in this video. I'm going to go ahead and hop over into this avatar. So I'll be hopping around a little bit here. Let me go into smooth POV here and hop up to the mirror. So in the mirror here, I am wearing the facial tracker face spot from NEAS Essentials. And when I puff my cheeks and let go, a stream of cheese comes out of my mouth because you know me and cheese. So this is what we're going to be setting up today. Let's go ahead and take a look at doing it. So I'm going to hop back into my avatar to start with here, just because I prefer building things in my avatar. Right, next I'm going to go ahead and put the one that we just used to the left here, turn off that mirror as it's a little bit distracting, and we need to get a few things. So we're going to go ahead and first of all, we're going to go ahead and get the Facebot avatar. So you can find the Facebot avatar in NEAS Essentials Avatars, face tracking ready. I'll just show you that on screen actually. Here it is. And it's the one on the left here. You can use any avatar, mind you. We could use my avatar, but I did want to use one that had the puff cheeks blend shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and spawn that in the world. That's the avatar. I'm going to go ahead and put that over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and navigate somewhere else in my inventory. So we're going to go to my public folder here for a second. There we are. Once we're inside my public folder, we need to go into the particles folder. I've added a new particle in here for today, which is the cheese cone, as I've called it. It's a cone of cheese in terms of particles. So I'm going to go ahead and spawn that in the world, and you'll see that we get a lovely cheese effect happening. That's all we're needing, other than a developer tip and a LogiX tip. Let's get going in making this work into a facial gesture. So the first thing I'm going to do is position this where it needs to be on the avatar. It's easier to do this when the particle effect is still going because you can see how it's going to look when it comes out of the mouth and you won't misplace it. In an earlier take of this video, I ended up placing it sort of somewhere in their nose without really realizing it due to 3D and depth perception issues. So what I'm going to do here is to parent it to the head. So to do that, I'm going to equip my developer tooltip here, aim at the head and hit secondary. That'll select the head, and then I'm going to open up the context menu here and hit Open Inspector. This will have the head bone selected. I'm now going to go ahead and parent this ball, which contains the particles, to the head. So I'm going to select this by hitting secondary on the ball, open the inspector here, go to where it says cheese cone, grab cheese cone, and drop it onto the head bone. These two things are now parented, so they'll move together. Now we're going to go ahead and reset some transforms. So what I'm going to do is select cheese cone, select reset position, rotation, and scale. And now you see that the cheese is coming out of sort of the neck, really, back of the throat. So we're going to move things a little around using the gizmo here. Just for the purposes of this, I will do a video on it later. I've got the interaction mode here set to tip, so I found that a little bit easier. And I'm going to go ahead and just pull it out of the face here, leaving the ball here because it's a useful way to sort of see where we're at. Make it a little bit in front of the face. Do remember that when you do this, your mouth will be open. That looks good. Now that it's positioned in the appropriate place, what I'm going to do is remove a few things on the cheese cone to make things a little bit simpler, optimization and all. So what we're going to do is go ahead and expand the cheese cone. Underneath the cheese cone here, you'll see that there is cheese cone particles, and we just need that one. So I'm going to bring that up to the head bone by grabbing it and dropping on head bone. And I'm going to go ahead and delete cheese cone. What that'll do is just get rid of that sphere, and now we're just down to the particle system. Then based on that, you might want to do a little bit more adjusting. In this case, it looks like everything wasn't aligned. I'll fix that in the public folder version of it, but I'm just going to go ahead and realign the particle system now that the ball is gone. That's a bit better. And there we go, we're done with the particle system. So I haven't really done particle systems in tutorials that much, and that's because particle systems are incredibly complex. There's so many properties. That's why I prepared this one ahead of time just for you guys. If you go inside cheese cone particles, you'll see that there's a load of stuff going on. But if you scroll all the way down to you'll see cone emitter, and you see this enabled property, we can turn off the enabled property here, and the cheese particles will stop, and we can turn it on, and they will continue. Additionally, what I've got here is a burst on activated, which means that when it turns on, we get a burst, which is really great wait for the effect of, you know, blowing them out of your mouth after puffing your cheeks. So now that that's set up, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off for now, so we just don't have cheese flying everywhere as we continue the tutorial. The next thing we're going to need to do is to get that head data sorted. So I'm going to do, not the head data, the mouth data sorted. So what I'm going to do is select the head bone here, create a new child under it using the star, which will create a new child here. So we've got head bone child. I'm going to rename this to mouth data. This is a good practice just so that you know, hey, is there mouth data already? Do I need to like maybe make some more? You know, what do I need to do? So I always add mouth data to the head, then people know where to go find it. I'm going to add a few components here. Now I did talk about these components in the previous video, but in that video we were doing tongue tracking, and this one we're going to be doing the sort of gestures. Let's go ahead and get those attached. So we're going to go to attach component, users, common avatar system, and then face, and then avatar raw mouth data. Now I have noticed in some cases that this will automatically assign its data source when it's equipped, but just in case that doesn't happen, I always like to, until I figure out why that's happening, I always like to, just in case it doesn't work as well, I like to add a users, common avatar system, face, and then avatar mouth data source assigner here. This will assign the data source to my mouth tracking source when I equip the avatar. So for that to work, we need to go ahead and grab data source and drop it into the target reference of mouth data source assigner. And then that will be set up in either eventuality. So if I hop into this avatar now, and we'll be hopping backwards and forwards. So now I'm in this avatar. Let's hop around to the inspector that we're at. Yeah, here we are. That's good. Just double check how we're doing on time. Yeah, we're good. You'll now see that we've got that data flowing in much the same case as we had in the previous video, which actually brings up a good point. If you already have a mouth data slot and an avatar raw mouth data, and you can get away with using the same one, please go ahead and do so. You don't need multiple of these. There's no technical reason why you would, and it might end up being sort of performance heavy if you have a lot of them. So just, try and keep to one. It's nice and tidy that way. If anything goes wrong, you know exactly where to go. So you'll see here that we've got a lot going on. In the previous video, we were just covering jaw, jaw open, tongue, and tongue. I think we didn't cover tongue roll, but we covered those three top properties there. Now you may see when I'm talking that we've got a lot of other stuff happening, and that's because when I talk, my mouth makes a lot of shapes, which the mouth data is picking up. I'm going to use pout here as an example because pout is a really obvious one that also prevents the others from firing, simply because it's it's quite a exclusive gesture, I would say. So when I pout, let me see if I can get you up to a mirror here as well. There we go. So now I'm going to go ahead and pout. That's not pout, that's cheek puff. You'll see that we get mouth pout going all the way up to sort of a large value here. Not exactly 1, but like close to 1. These values here are all based on sort of weighting or a percentage chance that you're likely to be doing that gesture. It is weighting, it's not percentages, but I look at it like that when I'm teaching people it because it makes sense to them. Like, is there a 100% chance I'm pouting, or is there a 0% chance I'm pouting? And that's what the pout there means. So you go, and you'll see it goes up to 0.95. That means, hey, pretty sure, because again, remember the facial track is guessing here, pretty sure that Prime is pouting right now, so I'm going to report a 0.9 on that scale. So you'll see a lot of these happen, if we do lip, I can't do these individually, some of them are quite hard, they're sort of, going to happen whatever I'm doing. Smile and frown also happens when I'm smiling and frowning, but with smile and frown and cheeks, left and right puff suck, these are a negative and positive scale here. So frown is -1 and smile is +1. So if I smile, you see we go +1, and if I frown, which I haven't actually been able to get much success with, I'm not quite sure if I'm just unable to frown, but I'll try. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what a frown is on a face, so we'll just skip over that one, and we'll go down to puff suck on left and right. And exactly the same thing will happen here if you can figure out how to make your mouth look like it's frowning. I don't know. Maybe I'm just weird. But cheek left puff and suck is actually quite a good one. If I suck in, you'll see it goes negative. You can think of that. You can think of that as maybe how your face would go if you're sucking on a straw, like a drink out of a container, one of the sort of fast food containers, etc., with straw. And then puff is when you puff your cheeks up. And so you see the numbers here are going quite large here. And when I suck them in, they're going quite small here, which is, negative. So that should give you an idea of what all this data is doing. Like I said, there is a lot going on here, but if you just read the name next to here, you can see what's going on. Right now, we're seeing a lot of gestures that involve smiling and a lot of gestures which involve puff suck, but not really much else going on. I've seen a few that involve pout. I predict we'll see a lot involving pout on Valentine's Day in 2022, but we'll see what's happening with VR at that point, and maybe I'll do another tutorial just for that day. You can also, of course, drive stuff on the jaw, the tongue, etc. Check my previous video if you're interested on that. So with the data explained, I'm going to stop rittering on and I'm going to go on to what we're going to be using today. So we're going to be using the puff suck gestures. So I call them gestures. They're really just face shapes, but the gesture terminology is similar to the ones that you'll be using for the hand-based gestures that you've been sort of looking at prior to having a mouth tracker. So what we want to do is basically detect when I puff my cheeks. And then when I suddenly let go of that puff, we want to release those particles in a big stream. So let's go ahead and get that going. We're going to be using LogiX for that, so make sure you've got a LogiX tooltip. With the LogiX tooltips equipped, we're going to go ahead and grab avatar raw mouth data. That gets avatar raw mouth data on my tooltip here, and I'm going to hit secondary. I forgot to mention at the start of the video, but as I go into this part of it, I do want to mention it as well. If you'd like another example of a gesture, there's one in Frux's video linked below where he smiles and some particles turn on. We'll be emulating some of this, but I wanted it was like a series of actions. We didn't have that here. You'll see this cheek puff one. Frux has it. I believe Nexalin now has it, where Nexalin breathes green fire. Frux does his bubbles. Super adorable. So we're going to go ahead and get that done here just to show you how that all works. I'm not sure if the exact same logic exists on those two avatars. I'm going to do it the way that I've done it. There's more than one way to do basically everything in Neos. So with this out here, we've got the morph mouth data into sort of the LogiX world with this interface. I can pull out a display node for puff suck here, and you'll see that we get two values. And so if I puff again, you'll see that we get everything happening here. Now I want it to be that it has to fire when both sides are puffing. This might not be clear or easy to understand at first, but we can actually just solve that by adding these two things together, because what that gets us is a larger scale that goes between -2 and +2. So I'm going to go to operators in the LogiX menu and spawn a plus node here. I'm going to connect left puff suck and right puff suck together into the plus, and then we'll get a combined value out. So now when I puff my cheeks, you'll see that we get a value that sometimes goes above 1, and that's just when both of those are being added together. You can see the individual values here add up to 1, basically. You might see the maximum of 2 here. It really does depend. I'm not able to get both those dials up to the largest point. Maybe I'm not puffing enough, but I don't want to damage my cheeks and inflating them too much. This is such a weird tutorial. We'll just continue. So what we want to do now is we want to detect when these this number here is greater than a certain point of view, and that means I'm most certainly puffing. And this is where we sort of talk about thresholds and adjustments, etc. You will have to adjust these depending on your individual facial tracker, your face, how much you want to puff them to trigger the gesture, how sensitive your facial tracker is, how sensitive everything else, between basically the computer and you is. So do keep this in mind and play around with the values. I'll be very clear to sort of point out a value that you can play around with. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this 0. I'm going to put it in a greater than or equal to node. Greater than or equal to is this sort of crocodile-looking mouth with a line under the bottom. There is one that doesn't have a line under the bottom. That just means greater than, but this one means greater than or equal to. The reason why we're using greater than or equal to is just because I just have more success with greater than or equal to recently, and so I'm trying to use that. So I'm going to connect the top part of plus into the top of greater than or equal to, and then the bottom thing is the threshold that we want to meet here. So we can see right now, hey, is puff suck greater than or equal to 0? Yeah, it is, and that's because it is equal to 0. So what I want to do here is put in a number here, which will be our threshold for activating it. So let's go ahead and try. I know from experience that 0.5 is okay. You got to remember we're adding both sides together. So now when I puff the cheeks, we get a true, and then we go back to false. So we get true and back to false. You might want to play around with this number here specifically, see if you want to adjust that. We also might play with it a little bit later in the tutorial once we've got things working and we see it's too sensitive. Maybe it picks it up when I'm saying certain words. You might have some difficulties with plosives. Plosives are phonemes within your speech which require lots of air, so sometimes they might falsely trigger this a little bit, depending on, like I said, the face, the way you talk, etc. Certain languages would also be interesting. I'm pretty sure there's some awesome data here about, looking at this data in different languages being spoken and seeing, what trends there are or something. So with this done, what we're going to do is hook up the LogiX to sort of see when this happens, let's do something, and when it stops happening, let's do something. For this, we're going to be using the fire on true and fire on false nodes. So if we go back up to the root of the node, LogiX node menu, we can go to flow, and we go to fire on true and fire on false. We'll need both, so I'm going to go ahead and spawn both. Fire on true, fire on false. Delete this one here. We're going to connect, we only need fire on false. Yeah, we only need fire on false. I forgot that. There we go. So delete fire on true. I made a quick change to the LogiX here based on a sort of optimization I was playing around with a little bit later. Sometimes there's like hours of research that goes into these tutorials, so I hope you guys appreciate it. So fire on false actually has a user input, and it's very important that we put a user in here. For avatars, it's super important that that is the user that's doing the facial tracking. The reason behind this is because this data is relayed to other people, but it's really, really fast and up to date if you use the user that's wearing it. So what we're going to do here is use the get active user node. So I'm going to head on over back to back, which is the root of the LogiX nodes portion, head into slots and select get active user and spawn that in the world. Now, get active user is a node which, for the purposes of avatars and for the purposes of simplifying this video, it will get the person who has equipped the avatar when you put in an avatar slot here, any avatar slot. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the right side of this to the bottom of the fire on false. We'll turn off the mirror just for a moment as well whilst we do LogiX. I know the sort of doubled view might be problematic for certain people. I'm just trying to show the inspector and, you know, my face doing things at the same time, and that might cause some issues. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and need to plug in a slot here. I've been tending to plug in lower slots, so I'm plugging in mouth data here. The reason why I'm doing this is because it means that if I move this LogiX between avatars, I don't have to sort of redo this sometime, because I might move that mouth data slot, and therefore I won't have to redo this linkage here. So this should actually output myself, which is great. We'll delete that. So now we're going to have is a fire on false when I stop puffing the cheeks. So I'm going to puff the cheeks and stop, and we get a pulse there. Fire on false is an edged triggered thing, so it's not going to fire when I duplicate or anything. I was experimenting with duplicating the avatar, spawning the avatar again, couldn't get it to fire. It has to go to true and then back to false for this to fire, which is fantastic. Simplifies things a lot. So now what we need to do is go ahead and connect that to the particle system, which I still don't have, which I do have right here. So let's go ahead and grab that particle system out. Thought that was it, but that's the mouth data. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab the cone emitter here, turn to the right here, push secondary, and we've got the particle system here. I'm going to have lots of sort of wires coming out of my mouth. I do apologize for those. I like editing this thing whilst I can see what's happening. It makes the whole thing feel a little bit more sort of human, and I'm connected to it. If that's confusing, I'm sorry, do let me know though. So what we're going to do now is when I let go of this, we're going to basically turn on this particle system for a certain amount of time and then turn it off. Just before this video, I was using a Boolean latch for this, but then I remembered there's a cool node for this, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce that. I don't think I've covered it before. If I have, my mistake, but we'll learn it here again. So we're going to go to side input. There is elapsed time. So the elapsed time node will output a time, which right now is very similar to the time that the world's been up. But if I pulse this here, you'll see it goes back down to 0 and it starts counting up again. What we can do here is use it to sort of detect how long has it been since an event happened. In this case, how long has it been since I puffed my cheeks? So what we can do here is connect the fire and false to elapsed time. And now when I puff the cheeks, we can see, oh, look, it's been 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds since I puffed the cheeks. This is perfect because what we want to do is basically turn on the particles for a little bit and then turn them off. So what we can do here is use a comparison node. So we go to operators and then we go to, we'll do less than this time. Not less than or equal to, just less than will be totally fine. We'll do less than here. Spawn this in the world, and what this does is this detects if a number is less than a certain value, and if it is, it will be true, and if it's not, it will be false. So we're going to go ahead and connect the bottom output of elapsed time to the top output of, oh, there we go, of the less than, and then we'll just do here. And this is the less than value that needs to be, and this will actually be the length of time that we want the particles to remain on. In experimenting, I saw that 1.5 to 1.25 is good. I'm going to leave it at 1.25 here is good. We don't want too much cheese, especially when my mouth is closed, because it's like, oh, where's the cheese coming from? So we're going to go ahead and do 1.25 here. So now I'm going to connect the output of the less than or equal to the enabled of the particle system, and then we're actually done. So I'm going to head over to the left here, just get the LogiX out of the way, clear those gizmos with my developer tooltip, and puff those cheeks and let them go. So here we go. And there we go. We have a cheese firing sort of cheese dragon. If you make that, I'll buy you a pizza. It's a cheese dragon, right? You know. And there we go. We're done. We might want to sort of tweak that number down a little bit. As you see, there's a little bit extra once I have my mouth shut. But hey, it's totally up to you, and you can play around with that as you go for it. So with this done, we've now got a gesture going. And we could also, you know, do this to smile. Doing it to smile would actually be quite easy. So let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do here is clone this plus node, put it up here. Connect the mouth smile to here and to here. And then I'm going to reconnect that to the greater than here. And now it's been swapped from cheek puff suck to smile. So here we go. I'm going to smile. And then stop smiling, and it comes out of my mouth. There is a little bit of acting involved here. That one's also triggering quite more times than it should be. Anyway, I built the LogiX puff suck. There is a little bit of acting here. We could detect if the mouth is open, but that's more LogiX. I think, you know, it's perfectly fine to sort of, you know, have a little bit of acting here, just sort of tweak what we need to based on what's going on here. You could, of course, make this gesture more prescriptive about what needs to be done, but that's no fun, really. So, oh, I disconnected from puff suck. Yeah, we'll just reconnect that, and we're back to how it was. That's it. So now I'm just going to cover packing this away. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go to the head bone, which you've got open in our inspector here. Select the head bone, create a new child using star, and I'm going to rename this to cheese breath, which just sounds gross. We'll just do cheese beam. That sounds good. Oh, cheese cannon. There we go. I was looking for a name that didn't repulse me. There we go. Cheese cannon. I think there's two ends in cannon. Doesn't really matter. There we go. So I created a slot to pack the LogiX away. We go ahead and grab cheese cannon, open up the context menu, do set packing route here, and then pack this all away. Actually, get rid of this as well. And we can get rid of that one. And that one. And we can go ahead and pack this away by holding secondary and pointing to any of the nodes here. Holding secondary, letting go, it's all gone. We can go ahead and delete this. It's not needed. I can close this. I can close this. And I can switch to my developer tooltip here and deselect all, and we're done. And there you go. If you look inside that particle system, you'll see that there is a material on the... Actually, I might as well just show you. The video is going on long, so please feel free to skip if you're okay. But what I'm going to do is go inside the cheese cone particles and scroll through the bottom here. And you'll see that we've got an unlit material here. You can change this image out for anything, and that will change what the particles are. So I'm going to go ahead and rummage through my my images folder just to show you how to do this. See what we've got here that might be funny. Yeah, that'll be good, actually. So there's this star here that says "You tried." I'm going to go ahead and stick that in there where the cheese particles are, and now it's stars which say "You tried." So you can do any image there. You can even do a screenshot. I'm going to do that just as a laugh. So what have we got here? You know, that's actually perfect. So here we've got Fruits in an AFK pose from quite a long time ago. I can get ahead, stick that in, and then Fruits breath, if that's another one that's sort of a weird naming. But there you go. That's how you can customize the cheese cannon to have whatever you want coming out of your mouth. I hope that's been helpful. Do let me know in the video comments what you think, and if you have any questions and what you'd like to see next in terms of facial tracking. I'm kind of done for now on all the stuff I wanted to cover. We've got, you know, how to set it up, how to do gestures, how to do you know, advanced expressions, how to drive the tongue. Just let me know what you'd like to see next, and I'll get to it. I'll see you next time. Until then, enjoy breathing cheese on everyone.